Karen Bass, who is now chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, and let's talk about the government shutdown.
Yes.
The partial shutdown, but affecting 800,000 workers. Now we have a standoff, if you will, going between Nancy Pelosi, Speaker, and the President. She's saying she can't guarantee security, therefore she's asking him to hold off on the State of the Union on January 29th, and he's now had told her, and he's withheld the military jet that she needed to fly on a trip with a congressional delegation that would have included Afghanistan.
Well, I think that President Trump has probably never in his life had to deal with a woman like Speaker Pelosi. She is the most powerful woman in the United States, and I think that that is very disorienting for him. You know, when you think about the shutdown, there was no reason for the shutdown. And frankly, for those of you out there who are suffering because of it, let me just apologize to you. I am hoping that when I get back to D.C. next week that this will end, because if you remember, Adrienne, we had an agreement. He had agreed to a budget, and then two radio talk show hosts intimidated him, and he backed away. He is asking for a wall that you and I know will never be built. Even if we were to give him $25 billion, that's not just land that is sitting there. It would have to go through eminent domain. Do you know how long that takes?
Well, here's a Machiavellian question. Why not give him the $5.7 billion and let it go to court?
But, well, a couple of things. I actually think that's the way the shutdown ends. I think that he declares an emergency. He declares a victory. He moves money. It gets stopped in the courts. But he has shown over and over again, when we have made deals with him, when we have given him the money, he still backs away. If you recall, last year we gave him $25 billion, and he backed away from that deal. The problem is that even though he calls himself the great deal maker, he doesn't actually know how to make a deal. He is still struggling 2 years into his presidency, not really understanding how the U.S. government works. And I think he's confused by the fact that we are a co-equal branch of the government, and he just can't dictate.
So Congress resumes on Tuesday?
Congress resumes on Tuesday.
Do you think that there could be an end to the shutdown next week?
I certainly hope that there is, because he essentially has to. And I think that, you know, him declaring an emergency is probably the only way for him to get out of this. At this point in time, this is a face-saving situation for him. And also because he has no idea how the average American lives. So to say for people, well, they'll just adjust, or if you're a government worker and you're furloughed, you're supposed to go to Uber, you're supposed to do dog walking. I mean, that's so offensive. But that's what he said. And so people are being hurt by this. And then the thing that's the most ironic, the whole reason for the shutdown from his perspective, you're talking about people at the border who are not being paid. You're talking about TSA agents, the very people who keep us safe from terrorism, the very people who guard the border are the ones that are affected right now.
So let's go back to the State of the Union. So you think that this might be ended so that this will just go forward?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think at this point, you know, Speaker Pelosi's alternative to him was he could give the State of the Union from the Oval Office, and that apparently in the past, presidents have given the State of Union in written form. And so the idea that we cannot actually keep the Capitol safe, the Secret Service people are not being paid, it didn't make sense to actually...
Well, Homeland Security Secretary says she could guarantee the safety.
I'm sorry, but I actually don't put a lot of stock into what the Homeland Security Secretary said. She also is the one that has lied about the number of children that were separated. She said that a lot of the parents just give the children up. So she doesn't have a lot of credibility from my point of view.
Let's talk about somebody else I don't think that you're particularly fond of, and that's Congressman Steve King, Republican of Iowa. Now removed from House committee assignments. The Congressional Black Caucus, your caucus called for that, didn't go so far as to call for his resignation?
Well, actually, we put out, our position was that the Republican caucus should immediately fire him from his committee assignments, and that's really important. I serve on the committee with him. He's on the committee of jurisdiction where his vote, his opinion actually can hurt people. We also called for him to be expelled from the Republican caucus. I don't disagree with him needing to resign. As a matter of fact, his own hometown paper said he should resign. But Stephen King has had a long history of incredibly racist comments. So this was, I think he finally had the tip of the iceberg, but this is not new behavior.
Well, this is when he used the terms white supremacy, Western civilization, white nationalists, white supremacy, and he didn't find those offensive words.
Well, he also met with a group of neo-Nazis and said that if their party was in the United States, it would be a Republican party. So you would think that at this point in time, the Republicans would call for his resignation, and in fact, actually, a few of them have.
All right, so what do you think that's going to find itself resolving?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think at this point in time, he might be so marginalized and so ostracized that he might go home. And I will tell you that no one would miss Mr. King.
All right. Congresswoman, we're going to take a break. We'll be back. We'll talk about upcoming elections, voting rights, and much more. Stay with us.